So first and foremost is the clear area trigger. This is the bread and butter of scenarios. Mostly in Arma you will have to go to an area, kill everyone there, everything, everyone, and then the scenario will be completed. You may even have to clear multiple areas. A very quick and easy trigger to put together, so we're going to jump straight in and throw down a trigger area. We're just going to bump this down because we're just doing a little test, so we'll just change that to 10. Activation type will be when OP4 is not present, so the trigger will fire when OP4 is not present. I'm going to mark this as a server only trigger, mainly out of habit, but it won't do any harm in this instance. Just give this a name, area clear. Again, not essential. And the activation, we're going to do a quick system chat message. Nothing too complex there, just a basic trigger. And what we're going to do is we're going to throw down our CSAT units inside the trigger and start the game. So we're now in the game. We can see our sample tasks are sitting there waiting. There's nothing here, so we're going to need to decorate this up, but let's just check our trigger is functioning. And we see clear in the left hand corner there. This trigger has fired, and what we would do is we would usually instead in there either put an option to change the marker, which we'll do shortly, or we could alternatively put in the end mission function. So as I just mentioned, what we're going to do is we want to change this marker when it gets completed. So to do that, I'm going to throw down an objective marker. Clear CSAT. And we're going to choose OP4 color. And what we're going to do is we know that's called marker 2. So we are going to use a set marker color. And as the tooltip just told us there, before we need the marker name and after we need the marker color. So when this trigger fires, the marker will change to grey. And we can see there it is now marked as grey. So that's all well and good. The only catch is that on larger areas, if you had to clear a town or village for instance, you might have one guy stuck miles away out of the area, still in the circle but not in a building, maybe a shed somewhere in a bush, and he would never be seen. So if your players have been through the area, they need to know where the limit is and which area specifically to clear. So to do that, I'm just going to add a second marker in, set it to the same size as the trigger. I'm going to copy its name because we're going to need to refer to that later. I'm going to set it as a border with OP4's colouring. Again, we can use any real brush that we would like. I can go for diagonals this time. And as you can see, we're just going to move it basically over so the trigger and the marker share the same size. We're then going to just update the activation field to include the second marker. And there we go. Now, when the player sees the objective on the map, they know exactly what they have to clear, and they won't be as inclined to miss out buildings or miss people. And we can see there the objective has been completed and has changed colour. Now to put the finishing touches on, which will be to give the interactivity of the task, which will actually provide on-screen feedback to the player when they've completed the task. Now I've got to say I'm a great fan of these, so to do that we put down a task state and also a create task module. The set task state, as the name implies, will set the state of a task when it is synchronized with a trigger. So we want that state to be succeeded, as in we wish this state to update the create task module with its status, and we also need to create the task itself. You can leave most of this information blank. The variable name is optional. Owner, I recommend that be set to all playable units. If you were doing two separate teams in the same mission of different size, you could perhaps assign different tasks to different sides. All playable units is probably the safest. Task ID and parent task ID we will get onto in the later tutorials. For now we can leave them both as blank, and our title is going to be Clear CSAT. Description we can leave as blank, marker blank. The destination will be whether this icon is shown in the map or not. So I'm going to leave that as module position. The state is the initial state of the task, which we leave as created. The task type we can pick as any picture. And the always visible will tell us whether the task appears in game or not. That is, when we are off the map, we will not see the module position, but we will see an in-game icon basically. So I'm going to leave both of them enabled so you can see what they do. We're going to click OK on that. And what we need to do is we need to join everything together. We do that by clicking sync to, and we sync our task state with the create task module. As I said before, this fires when a trigger hits it, and in order to tell it which trigger, we need to synchronize the trigger itself with the task. Now, that means our activation will fire, changing the marker's color. We will also then complete the task. Let's give that a quick try now. We can see because we ticked always visible, we see our in-game marker. Because we selected show marker position, the module position of the marker is shown. And then finally, if we shoot these dudes, our task is completed and our marker or markers have changed color. That is pretty much done for the clear area task. It is completely functional as it is now. What we can do is we can also have one more additional feature. So when we have to clear a large area, for instance a town or a building, sometimes it can be difficult to check every single location. Typically what you'll have is players accidentally missing rooms, maybe they miss one guy prone in a window. So to do that, what we can do is we can slightly relax the condition field, and what we could do is we could instead use the alternative variables such as this list, which counts all the units in the OPT4 group. We can use a count of this list to say when there is less than 3 people remaining, that is less than 3 OPT4, because OPT4, as the condition tooltip implies, it is based on the activation. So the activation is set to OPT4, so this list will only contain OPT4 units. So we have the expression that says count this list, as in it count the number of OPT4 units, is less than 3, then we're going to activate the condition. And what the result of that is that when there are less than 3 units remaining, then the task will fire. And those guys are pretty annoyed, but the task has been fired and the objective as far as the mission is concerned would be completed, without the players then having to painstakingly search every single house. That pretty much covers the basics of the clear area task. We'll move on to more advanced tasking in the next tutorial.